Welcome back, and going on to continue of how genetics is a little bit more complicated than Mendel thought. So now we're on polygenic traits, which are just basically means poly more than. They're governed by more than one gene, so they have that cumulative effect. So I'll show you that in another picture, but they have a whole range of phenotypes. So examples of this would be human height, intelligence, skin, and eye color. So it just means that there's going to be gradual differences and a continuous variation. It's not like white or dark. You have a continuing color variation. And so, like skin color, eye color, you can think of them like that. There's also linked genes. So, with linked genes, they're close together on the same chromosome. So, for example, like these guys could possibly be linked more so than A and E, because during crossover, those might switch. Going in there. Sex linked. This means it's carried on the X chromosome. And so remember that females have two X's and males only have one. So males have more of a chance of getting it. Different things like this are color blindness, hemophilia, Duchenne's muscular, all carried on that X-linked trait. There are a few Y-linked, and so we talked about the SRY in our case study. That shows up on the male, so this is the male Y chromosome. And so obviously only males could get this, and Harry Pinney, lucky for you guys. So X and Y are also not homologous partners because there's a size difference. The X is much bigger, and so they don't usually cross over. Big word, pleiotropy. And so the pleo part, this is just saying that most genes have multiple phenotypic effects. And so you have two copies of the sickle cell allele. The hemoglobin is sickle cell, which then makes it crystallize and become sickle shaped. And because of that, there's many things that can happen. Epistasis. So, genes on one locus alter the phenotype expression of genes on another. So, kind of weird. That kind of like gene, but for this one, the gene of the C can affect the gene of the B. So, if you look big B, big B, big B, big B, he should be black coat. However, because of this little c, there's no color, which makes him white. So all of these guys who are white should have different colors, but that gene kind of overrides the other gene. Pedigrees. So a pedigree is just showing your family history, basically, and if there's a disease or trait, they can pass it down. And so the squares are always male, and the females are always circles. And this is showing, like with here, so especially the letters, I can see that this is a dominant trait, and the recessive do not have it. So this woman is recessive; she doesn't have a widow's peak, whereas this one does. So she could be either one. Same thing with over here. This one, though, is showing it in the recessive has the trait, so recessive for attached earlobe, and this person is not recessive. So in order to draw it, like I said, circle is a female, square is a male, and you have like the parents. They had 3 kids. This person married this guy, so you should always have connecting here a female and a male, and then whatever kids they had. So this one, I'm seeing that this female has not had any kids yet. Here's a more complicated one, Queen Victoria, and this is showing hemophilia, and so you can't see, but this would be normal male, and this is the male that have it. So this is one of those sex-linked ones. So yeah, these guys are all assassinated, so we don't really know what happened. Good old royalty. But you can see mom is a carrier. She had these different kids. She has a female who's carrier, one male that had another female's carrier. So the male, and you can kind of trace it down. You can see that overall, more males are getting the disorder. So let's talk about some about disorders. So, I don't think this song is working. Oops, no. So, that doesn't really help us. Um, Many human genes have we've known a lot about human genes through studying diseases. So many of the genetic disorders result from changes in the DNA so that non-functioning proteins are produced. The mutation that causes a protein to be non-functional will be usually is recessive. So there's a lot of genetic disorders that are autosomal, so regular chromosome, not your sex chromosome. And so when we have PKU, Tay-Sachs, and cystic fibrosis. So start with PKU, and what happens in here is there's a mutation that breaks down an amino acid called phenolphthalein, hence the name. And so it can't break that down, and so the buildup causes mental retardation. So every baby is tested. The reason they test every single baby is because all you need to fix this is have a diet low in phenylalanine. And so since your body can't break it down, you have a diet low in that, and all it is an amino acid. And so what do you think that they have to avoid? That's right, it's an amino acid, avoid proteins. And so with this, NutraSweet, sorry, the song's not working. And so cystic fibrosis, a lot like PKU, it's that breakdown of a protein. So what happens is it loses 3 DNA bases in a gene that codes for a channel protein that it transports chlorine back and forth. And so without that chloride channel working, I shouldn't have said chloride, the salt balance is upset. It can't go through, which causes a thick buildup of mucus. There we go. And so with cystic fibrosis, it's actually the heterozygous is going to carry. They're not going to see it though. So I hate when you put the small t first, but these guys are heterozygous. They're carriers, and that's the same with Tay-Sachs with any recessive. And the recessive is going to have it. So they don't show it, but they can have it. So with Tay-Sachs, this one is the causes breakdown of enzyme, again, proteins that break down the lipid in the brain. And so since it can't break it down, the lipids build up and they suffer seizures, blindness, loss of motor and mental functions, and they usually die pretty early. So this is a pretty serious disease. And so going on, we also have, so Tay-Sachs again is autosomal recessive. So disorders, we could also have disorders that are caused by codominant alleles. And so example of this is sickle cell. So in here, there's one of the A in DNA is changed to a T, and that happened to code for hemoglobin. And so the protein, which is the protein in red blood cells that carries oxygen. So with sickle cell, the red blood cell becomes sickle-shaped under low oxygen conditions for people who have 2 sickle cell alleles. So it is still recessive. But this heterozygous is actually normal but can suffer from sickle cell episodes. They can have circulatory problems. The cells stick, so this is mostly for those ones with little s. They can have organ damage, and it can lead to death. It's more common in African Americans, and it also affects people of Mediterranean and Middle Eastern descent. So why do they all have it? Well, what's interesting is that it can also help them when they're heterozygous. It can help them fight malaria. So molecular level, this person is unhealthy, the recessive. Dominant, completely normal, and they will be infected with malaria. The heterozygous, they're resistant to malaria, but they might get a little sick from sickle cell. And so it's a trade-off the disease. Excuse me. So, genetic linked disease. Many human genetic disorders may be the small price we pay. So it may give us something as our body, basically, if it's not killing us, we keep going. So a person heterozygous for cystic fibrosis is also resistant to typhoid. Now that we don't have typhoid, maybe that will go away. Changes to vitamin D receptors often can get resistance to tuberculosis. But you can also get more osteoporosis. So the risk your body will take. And when we start looking at the relationship between dominance and phenotype, it's kind of interesting. So is it dominant, codominant, incomplete dominance? It kind of depends on what you're looking at. So let's take, for example, Tay-Sachs. We've talked about this, but at an organism level, it's a recessive trait. So children with 2 copies, we talked about, that's a complete dominance. At a biochemical level, though, this heterozygous can have some enzyme differences, so maybe incomplete dominance. Molecularly, this heterozygous has an equal number of normal and dysfunctional enzymes, so maybe it's codominant. Interesting. We need to learn more. But you can't read the title up here, but it says Huntington's disease. So Huntington's interesting because it's actually dominant. And so if you have the dominant characteristic, you will get this disorder. So what it is, it happens to have an extra CAG, so this is in your DNA, repeats at the end of chromosome 4. The more repeats, the more severe. So Huntington's begins at middle age and causes progressive loss of muscle control and mental function, and happens in 1 to 10,000 people. So a person with Huntington's, it's going to have, if you look here, 50% chance of passing the disorder onto their offspring. However, you don't know this until middle age, so you don't know if you're going to have it until after you've already had kids. So this song, again, it's not working, but it's This Land Is My Land. He actually had, the person who wrote that had Huntington's at the beginning of this, who sang Alice's Restaurant. There was no test for it, and so you used to just have to wait and see. And he never developed it. He's still performing today. So it is a question though. If there's no cure, would you want to be tested, or would you just want to wait on life? Last one we're going to talk about is dwarfism or achondroplasia. And so this is also autosomal dominant. Interesting part is if you have the homozygous dominant, it's actually lethal. So there's 200,000 little people worldwide, and it's one of the oldest known disorders. So you have a normal size head and torso, but really short arms and legs. There are some problems with cartilage as the bone grows. Okay. Ways to get you tested. These are other facts. So you can get tested by getting an amniocentesis, which is the amniotic fluid. You can test those, and they grow. Or they can actually take this contract villi from the placenta and grow and test it. You can see this one's a little bit quicker. This is more common, less intrusive. This is showing a karyotype. Is a picture of someone's chromosomes. So you can see there's 23 pairs, all in order from the largest to the smallest. And it's a girl, she has XX, and the XY over here is the male. And it can show you the sex. It can show you if you have extra chromosomes. So right here, this is Down syndrome. You have an extra chromosome. You can see if there's any kind of deletions, but you can't see the actual gene. And we are done.